Hello, good evening, and welcome to Talking Songs with me, Rowland Jones. How are we doing out there? Yes, how's the weather doing? Where are you? It's actually not been so bad. You actually risked going into Manchester today for the to do some of that Christmas shopping stuff, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be. I went all wrapped up with scarf and gloves and a thermal vest and everything else, and then after you get into the second shop, you think, oh my God, it's peel something off here. And it wasn't too bad. Prices are rocketing, which is a little bit disappointing, because as we well know, salaries aren't. But there you go. It's time for some, what's the word I'm looking for? Festive happiness. So let's have some festive happiness. So before I bring my guest on for this evening, I'm going to play a tune as usual. And this is called I Knew in That Moment. Sometimes I think too much, I look too hard and I dig too deep. Can't get you out of my mind, can't get no peace. I know I can't forget you, though many, many years have passed. I can still see your smile, I can still hear that laugh. And I knew in that moment, I knew that's all it could ever be. And I knew in that moment that the world was only you and me. I had to let you go, 'cause I knew it wasn't right. Well, I let you walk out that door, didn't even put up a fight. Sad or glad that it happened, either way it was never meant to be. I thought I'd won the big prize that night, but in the end the loser was me. When I knew in that moment, I knew that's all it could ever be. And I knew in that moment the world was only you and me. 20 years later, the memory still lingers on. How can something that felt so right possibly be looked at as being so wrong? And I knew in that moment, I knew that's all it could ever be. I knew in that moment that the world was only you and me. Yes, and I knew in that moment, I knew that's all it could ever be. And I knew in that moment that the world was only you and me. Just put my instruments away for a second. Right. So, yeah, it's the first song of the evening. And now I'd like to introduce somebody on who is called Mr. Ed Coan. Are you there? Speak to
I'm
him.
here. Hi, Rowland.
How are you doing, Ed?
I'm good. It's a bit
Good.
cold, but I'm good. But I'm in the deep south.
Ah, right, okay. Well, it's normally the other way around. It's normally the frozen north, but it seems to be the other way around this time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, it's been a bit milder here today, which I'm quite grateful for, I have to say. Is it still snowing with you down there then?
No, it stopped snowing, but it's that kind of second day freeze,
Oh, all right.
which is
Yeah.
not good for cars.
No, that's true. Yeah, I know when Leslie went out in the car early the other morning, it was like -5 or something. He was reading in the car, but I'm not entirely convinced those things are true. But there you go. So Ed,
Yeah.
songwriting. So when did the whole music thing start for you?
Funnily enough, I was reminded of it recently. It started when I was 15, when I was at school. That is 50 years ago. That's the guess the age competition. And I read Hunter Davis wrote an authorized biography of the Beatles in the late 60s. And I read it, and it had a kind of biblical effect on me, really. I kind of suddenly, I'd always, my subjects at school were, I loved English and wordplay, and the book Wider Than Music made me realize that, if there was something you were really passionate about, we're lucky to live in an era where you could do a creative thing as a job. That opportunity wasn't afforded to people, even 50 years ago.
No.
It was difficult to do that. And the reason I was reminded of it recently is I went to a talk Hunter Davis gave recently at the British Library about that book. And so I took my first edition and queued up and said to him, "You wouldn't know this, but this book changed my life." And we had a good old chat. Yeah, we had a really good chat, and he signed it for me. So
Excellent.
it was a full circle. And from that, I kind of absolutely pestered my dad. There was no real musical thing in my family, and I pestered my dad I'd found a guitar in a second-hand shop not far from me in the window, £9, and dragged him down there one Saturday morning, and with much relief to him, it was closed. But to show that, I always think, and I often say to people, if it's something you really want to do, the chances are you're going to have a go at it. So I dragged him back the following week, and he bought it for me.
Excellent.
And here's, like a lot of people, I thought, we just pick this thing up and play it.
Yeah, easy.
It's simple. It's a tennis racket.
Yeah.
And I bought various Beatles songbooks, but they were in those days, in the sort of that was the early 70s. They didn't really have the chord. In fact, I've got one. There's the songbook for Abbey Road.
All right.
And it doesn't have the chord structures.
No.
So it just shows you the music, and it says the name of the chord.
Right.
But it wasn't until a couple of years later, when books like this one came out, The Beatles Complete, that hurrah, we now have chord structures.
That one's quite good, as I recollect. That one.
So,
and it's also it shows the correct inversions of things and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas the earlier ones, they either, as you say, they either didn't say anything, or they'd been written by piano players.
Exactly.
And therefore had these extraordinary chords. It was like, it just needed to be a dominant chord, but they've got it down as a G sharp seventh with a flattened fifth and a sharp ninth.
Exactly. I think from that day to this, I've never played A flat seventh. But that was what really got. There was something in that book. Paul McCartney talked in that book about he used to play till his fingers bled. And I kind of thought, this is a rite of passage. I've got to do this.
Yeah.
But mind you, I did follow one bit of stupid advice he had in the book, which is he said he used to play the guitar in the bath, which I did try to do once, and it was a complete disaster. Anyway,
I can't see the attraction personally.
No, I couldn't have done that. So, but that's what got me going, and like a lot of people, it was just about putting my fingers in the right place and slowly getting something to come out that sounded vaguely like vaguely like the song I wanted to reproduce.
So I have to ask the question: what sort of guitar was the first one you had?
I have not got a clue because
Right. It was one of those.
I don't think it even had a name on it. It was
Right.
turquoise. That's all I remember.
Nice.
It was a £9 turquoise second-hand beat-up guitar.
Right.
And I used to just stay in my bedroom and everyone pretended not to listen. And slowly, but because I'd always been interested in words, it was kind of a fairly natural thing for me to want to write my own stuff from very early on. So I didn't need any pushing in that department.
Did you have any friends at school who played or anything?
Yeah, a couple of friends. There might be a guy who's on here tonight actually who I haven't seen for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
We used to play, but I was always and still am really a kind of solo guy. So I was never formally in a band. I just and my interest in it was a bit more. It's only in relatively recent years I've started singing in public. I was always interested in writing songs that possibly other people would record. But it took me a while to get my head around. Oh, hang on, I could sing these too. So yeah, from that was kind of early days, and there were periods when I didn't play much, and then in the last 20 years, really 15, 20 years, I've really come back to it, and with the encouragement of other people, and taken it a lot further forward. I still know nothing about production, but I just the actual songwriting is the thing which has always fascinated me, and the kind of connections that you can create.
I mean, I know it's the obvious question to ask, and but I'll do it anyway. Is which do you find, because you talk very much about the lyrics straight away? Is that the first thing? Do you have a phrase in mind and then you try and set it to music, or do they tend to?
The answer to that is yes and no.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think sometimes, I mean, the first song I'll play in a minute is yes, that is what happened. And then other times I'll be just sitting with the guitar on my lap, watching television or doing nothing and twiddling about, and suddenly go, oh yeah. What does that make me think about? Where is that going? So
I wonder,
are
guitarists the only people who do that? Do other musicians? Because I mean, you can't do it with a piano.
I was going to say it's a bit difficult with
or a tuba, or a saxophone. Even if you're going to annoy all the people sitting at the other end of the city. But it's something we've all done, isn't it?
I do, and I think I've only noticed this recently, that I think your subconscious is on all the time, and sometimes, I mean, I was reading something about would you believe it, the psychological reasons behind climate change denial the other week. I was just reading this thing, and then I was writing a song for this course I'm doing, and suddenly this started to come out, and I thought I only read this thing for kind of pleasure, really. It wasn't because I was reading it to do research.
Yeah.
And suddenly it kind of back informs a line or something or a phrase. So I think you kind of, if you're, no pun intended, if you're sort of tuned in, that just keeps happening. And sometimes kind of unnervingly so. I've got this thing where sometimes if I'll be in a mood about something, whether it's good or bad, I'll start singing a song by someone else, and I think, why am I singing this? And then eventually I'll get to a line in that song which describes what the thing I'm thinking about.
All right.
So my subconscious is going to that.
Is that like an earworm you get first thing in the morning, or can it happen any time?
It can happen any time. I could be thinking, I remember feeling a bit down a few weeks ago, and suddenly I was singing man buys ring, woman throws it away, same old thing happens every day. I'm down. Because that's what I was feeling, but I didn't know that's why I started singing the song.
That's interesting. Nice. I like that.
Yeah. So
okay,
what's
your first song going to be then?
So this song, I've done a few songwriting workshops over the years with various people, and one of the most interesting ones I did was with Willie Russell.
Oh, right.
In North Wales, and the first morning I didn't know anybody on the course, and he paired us up with people, and by sheer luck and fluke, I was paired up with this guy called Jim from Nebraska, who had fought in the Vietnam War, and then he'd been a bodyguard to Hollywood stars, and he was in Wales studying to be a shaman priest. and Willie Russell's brief,
interesting CV, isn't it?
And Willie Russell's brief was go and take the other person for a coffee, or both of you go, all you lot go off together, talk to the person about their life, and I'll get a song out of it, and I want to see you back here at lunchtime with a verse and a chorus. And so I, as an opener, I said to Jim, do you sleep? And he had a very deep American voice. I said, did you sleep well last night, Jim? He said, it's too late to tell. And I went, that's it. I said, can we go back now? That'll do.
It's too late to tell. That's brilliant.
It's too late to tell. I just thought that's the song. So this song came out of that.
Brilliant. Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah. There was drinking, there was singing, my head started ringing, ding dong loud and slow. Now's the morning after, just the sound of laughter's a ha ha hammer blow. Said to the guy next to me, did you sleep well? Well, he closed his eyes, took 3 long sighs and said, it's too late to tell. Rivalry, resistance, rifles in the distance, shoot, shoot, shoot 'em dead. Then the weight of waiting, cannon resonating, going boom, boom in my head. Said to the guy next to me, is this our hell? Well, he closed his eyes, took 3 long sighs and said, it's too late to tell. I have been in too deep, too soon to quit. Lately I've been too scared or too proud to admit I got it badly wrong. I have been in too soon, too deep to quit. But lately I've been too scared or too proud to admit I got it badly wrong. Met a girl who only calls me when she's lonely, puts paid to my plans. Then I met a sister, Lord knows how I missed her. Man, oh man, oh man. I said to her recently, is love a spell? Well, she closed her eyes, took 3 long sighs and said, it's too late to tell. I was married in the morning, I didn't get a warning, now it's much too late to tell. Then I met a sister, Lord knows how I missed her, now it's much too late to tell.
Great, love it. That's a great story. Just what a weird thing to say.
Well, he also said, here's another one. I said, are you married, Jim? And he said, I met my wife on a rifle range. And he had. He was.
Is this going to be an entire catalogue of songs you're going to do based on what he said? It sounds like it.
All week he was just coming out with these one-liners. You thought, oh, there's a song in that. There's a song in that. Yeah.
Love it.
Great. I've been on a few songwriting workshops over the years, and you always pick up. Apart from that song, there's always things you pick up from different people. And Willie Russell was really interesting because that took me right outside my comfort zone, because that was mostly about writing songs for musical theatre.
Yeah, which is a different kettle of fish.
So, and also that was one of my way back in the 70s. I don't know if you remember his first sort of breakthrough play was called John, Paul, George, Ringo and Bert, which was Barbara Dixon's big breakthrough.
Was it? Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
she was sort of behind the scenes playing all.
Yeah.
That was his big thing. Yeah.
Got some. I'm not sure. Can you read the comments on one side of the screen? You probably can't, can you?
I can't.
Right. Well, we've got a few here. We've got one. Is from somebody called Mick?
Mick
Yeah,
Griffith.
Is this the guy you were talking about before?
Yeah.
He says, "Great Ed, lovely to see you, albeit at a distance. Different to my room growing up and at school. All the best." That's nice.
Yeah, that's Mick Griffin. He was a big prog rock fan.
Oh, right. Weren't we all? I think we all were at one point. And somebody, love it, Ed, from Laura Dannon. Is it David?
Oh yeah, Laura. Yeah, I know Laura well. I'm playing at a thing with her on Friday.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I run a little singer-songwriter night in the village where I live. I started it up just before lockdown.
No.
And the only rule is no covers.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
I'll let you play if you write your own stuff.
I think that's right, because it's there's a gig that I'm involved in Manchester, and it's really funny because quite often I'll book people and say, right, okay, fine, and I'll say, don't want any covers, it's all originals, and they're so stunned because they're so used to trying to make a living, and they want to do their own stuff, but they're forced to doing things that they really don't want to do. And I also this thing about there's this weird thing about cover, and I'm sure people who've listened to this program before will have heard me say this 1,000 times. There's nothing wrong with doing other people's music, but the people who say I'm doing a cover, they're very apologetic about it. Like it's, oh, I didn't write this, so it's not really that important, which I dislike intensely because it should be. I mean, and I always think, well, Joe Cocker and Little Help from My Friends, was that just a cover? I don't think so.
No, agreed. Yeah, I'm a huge believer in even if I do covers, you kind of take them somewhere else, Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Unless you want to be
the one I remember from the late 60s was an American band called Vanilla Fudge, who recorded. Was it a Supreme song? Set me free, why don't you, babe? Keep Me Hanging On.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they did Keep Me Hanging On with a sort of really, what was the prequel to the grungy guitar sound, and it was brilliant. I loved it.
I've often, funny enough on that. I mean, you remember everyone used to diss Eurovision stuff, but Puppet on a String, the Sandy Shaw song.
Sandy Shaw.
I've often thought there's a really slowed down jazz version of that to do, which would be a really nice song because it was done as very much pop.
Yeah. It's funny you should say jazz because one of the things that I spent quite a long time playing jazz in big bands and all sorts of stuff, and one of the things I could never understand was that some of the songs that all jazzers want to do at like 160 BPM, where in fact they're love songs. And things like Autumn Leaves, which is a beautiful, sensitive ballad. They want to do, the autumn leaves and it's rubbish. It's a beautiful song, but it's not. It wasn't written to be performed like that. So I think the tempo is very interesting. So the course. So would like to tell us a little bit about this course?
Well, I didn't know you could do a qualification in songwriting until about 5 months ago, and I was watching an old Top of the Pops 1995, and Suede were on it, and a little caption came up saying Bernard Butler, the lead guitarist in Suede, is now a lecturer at BIMM. So I looked up the British Institute of Music and Musician, and I suddenly looked at their website. I thought, I didn't know you could do all this, whether it's guitar, vocals, drums.
Yeah.
And they also ran a songwriting degree, and then through them I found a place in North London, Kilburn, called the Institute of Contemporary Music Performance, ICMP, and similar courses. So I went to their open days, which annoyingly were on the same day. I keep telling them that was a bit silly.
Bad timing.
And the ICMP one, I just got a really good feeling about it, and I got chatting to the songwriting tutor Shane Beale there, and we were just chatting, and he said, "What are you thinking about doing?" I said, "I'm thinking about doing the degree, but I'm just not sure I've got enough time to do it, so I'm still working." And he said, "Well, tell me about yourself. How many have you written songs? Blah blah blah." And then he said, "What's your job?" And I said, well, "I'm a copywriter." And he said, "Oh, well, hang on a minute. That changes things because that's so professionally relevant to songwriting. You might qualify to get on our masters." And I then had to do an audition, and which was the most unnerving thing I've done apart from taking my driving test, I think. And I did this audition, had to play 3 of my songs and describe them in great detail, the lyrical format and everything. And then because I did go to university but left, I haven't got a first degree, so they then asked me to do an academic essay to prove my credentials, the title of which was "In What Ways Can Songwriting Be Perceived as a Research Practice?" Sharp intake of breath.
Yeah.
But I've got a friend in the research world, and I spoke to him about it and showed him. He said, "Oh, what an interesting question." And I said, "Is
What
it?
does it mean?"
Tell me about it." And he unpacked a whole world, to be fair, that I didn't know existed, mostly around songwriting as therapy.
Oh yeah.
And songwriting as a therapeutic intervention with dementia, terminally ill patients. There's a fascinating project going on in Scotland at the moment with prisoners who are about to be released.
I don't know if you know this. Have you come across Talent is Timeless?
Yeah.
Right. Well, the guy who won it the first year,
Right.
I think he called Angus. I can't remember. Because I interviewed him for Talking
Right.
Songs, and he was explaining to me how it all came about was because he'd started working on courses for offenders in songwriting. And that's,
Right.
I mean, because he's a trained psychologist, so that was his background, which I wasn't aware of. I have to admit that.
Oh, it's huge. I read quite a lot about it, that sort of area, for this essay. The part of the world where it's really probably more progressive than anywhere is Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount of work going on over, particularly around people getting in touch with their cultural roots and writing songs that reconnect with the Aboriginal people. And but the project in Scotland is very powerful and informing the criminal justice system.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
what he was saying.
there's research into. Sorry, Ron.
I was going to say there seems to be a very, very strong group of people who are songwriters and sort of encouraging songwriting in Scotland. I know some friends of mine from Manchester went up there and did some things a few months ago, and quite a few people I've met via Talent is Timeless and various other things are based in Scotland, and there seems to be a hell of a lot of activity up there in terms of songwriting, which is great.
There's that kind of research, I guess, into songwriting as a therapeutic intervention, but then there's also research into songwriting itself. Like, what is this process? Are certain people more attuned than others? Also, Paul McCartney says, "I woke up this morning and I had this song," and you go, "Yeah, hang on a minute, just hold on, let's unpack that and go back and where is this stuff kind of coming from?" So yeah. I mean,
I think it's interesting, but as we were having a brief conversation about this before the show started, I was trying to discourage us from, because I'm a bit of a chatterbox anyway, and I try and discourage us because the danger is we're going to run out of things to talk about. I think it's more likely with me and Ed that we're going to run out of time, frankly. But yeah, there's this thing about analysis, but it's analysis of things that have already been done rather than a process that they were using. That's the thing that puzzles me about it, because I think a lot of it is still intuitive, or luck. I'm not quite sure which.
Yeah. Or I think there's wherever that Venn diagram meets is where the magic is.
Absolutely. Hang on, I've got a saying here. And we got sports reports coming through here. Michael, what are you talking about? Fantastic. Ed is a fantastic footballer, by the way. Oh well, that's. There's no point talking to me about football. I know nothing about football, and I have no interest in it. So
that's how I've made it. Yeah, most of my copywriting life has been spent in football.
There you go. Each to his own.
Yeah.
So, So where do you think? How is? I mean, how long have you been doing this course now? Can't be that long.
This is the end of the first term.
Right.
So I'm doing it 2 years part time.
Right.
So there's six terms in effect, and it's all day in the college on Thursdays
Hmm.
until quite late at night. And
Hmm.
we've finished. The first term has been all about processes and
Hmm.
purpose and professionalism. And I don't know quite yet, but I think a lot of next term is about lyrics, and
Yeah.
which I'm going to love
Yeah.
because
Yes. Yeah.
that's my
Inevitably.
home patch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of the things that's always struck me about these, because obviously I've had quite a few people on who've been on these courses, like Tricia, who
yeah,
put
yeah,
you in touch with me. And one of the things that strikes me about it is that there's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, is that if you've made a commitment to doing something and then you follow that commitment through, you're going to get something out of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And the fact that you now have a regime under which you will study songwriting.
Yeah. I mean,
And I,
in my case, and I suppose I still haven't answered this question, is why am I doing it?
mm,
Because I'm 65 now. I've had a
mm,
career.
mm,
I'm doing it purely for the love. I'm not doing it because I see myself. I mean, I'd love to leave some sort of
mm,
songwriting legacy of some
mm.
kind, but I'm not doing it because I'm eyeing up a career in the music business.
No.
That isn't where I'm coming from.
Mm.
Um, I'm
But
doing it to
as a
see.
matter of interest, do other people understand that?
Yeah, I think they do. It's something I've chatted to the tutors about, and they've kind of said, like all reasons are good reasons.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter
Yeah.
why what you're here for. I mean, so I feel kind of one level lucky to be coming at it from that.
Mm.
So it's not something I desperately need. Some people are doing it. I completely get it because they're already teaching songwriting, and
Yeah.
it's going to give them some added gravitas. I get
Yeah.
that completely. But interesting bunch of people, really interesting.
One of the reasons I asked that question is because I know, because I'm older than you, and I still get people saying, well, why you go out, like I'm going out, I'm doing a gig tomorrow night, I'm doing another gig on Sunday, etc. etc. Why are you doing it? Do you still want to be rich and famous? Well, it would be very nice, but that's not the reason I do it.
No, agreed.
That's that. There's something about doing it, and there's something that about the for me, certainly, there's something about when you're performing is to is a kind of freedom in the
Yeah,
fact that you're not worrying about anything other things, about other stuff in your life.
agreed. I think the other thing for me has always been, and this maybe I don't want to over-egg it, but it's about connection.
Mm,
It's about saying something from your own experience,
mm,
which lands with people and resonates with them
yeah,
and makes them hopefully think about something in a different way or
mm,
reminds them of something particularly poignant.
mm.
Um, and so that's when that happens. That's a
No, I
special.
agree with. Yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
agree with you on that one. Yeah. So, should we have another song?
Yeah. Well, on that very point, this was a song.
Seamlessly professional. That wasn't it?
Yeah, this is a song. A friend of mine is a carer, and
Mm,
she was looking after a lady who was terminally ill a couple of years ago, and she just sent me a picture one day. This lady of the garden of this house, and
mm,
she just put on it, "I'm sure going to miss this place," and that just made me think about. And I've always had a thing about. I mean, I live in an old Victorian house,
mm,
about places, and I suppose it's that the Beatles song "In
There were
My Life"
places in
kind
my
of
life.
picks
Yeah.
up on that.
Yeah.
So it's always. So this came out of this. I haven't played this for a while, so I'm looking at the words.
That's fair enough. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay.
When it's time to leave and give that front door key its final turn, only then I'll believe I've reached the point of no return. I know it's a moment I will have to face, but of one thing I'm certain now, I'm sure gonna miss this place. when the high oaks have gone and no longer pin my skyline down, it's time for so long, and head to another part of town. But I'll always remember every room, every space. Yes, of one thing I'm certain now, I'm sure gonna miss this place. I've watched people every hour building a home, but this house has built a power all of its own. Certain secret corners only known to me, but the bricks and mortar are all anyone else can see. Now that time is here, but before we face a different phase, let's pause for a tear, then we'll head our separate ways. I walk from your doorstep, this time gripping my case. Yes, of one thing I'm certain now, I'm sure gonna miss this place. Yes, of one thing I'm certain now, I'm sure gonna miss this place.
Nice.
There you go.
I like the way the you know, it's, to me it's very obvious that you come at it from a lyrical standpoint, because you have your tendency, and this is not a criticism, this is an observation, is that you have an approach to it which is very much like traditional blues singers. They would sing a line and then they'd change the chord when they felt it was right.
Yeah.
Now yours isn't as loose as that. You still follow a structure, but your timing comes from the words.
Yeah, it is.
I mean?
And I think that it also picks up, we were talking before we started about, I love James Taylor, and James Taylor does that a lot.
Yep.
Where, it's kind of, he's led by the lyric and then,
and then goes into the song.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to one of your songs today, the one inspired by about the town, about London, streets of London.
Oh yeah, I was going to play it. Yeah.
Okay, well, that'd be nice. But the fact about that, it actually has an intro, effectively.
Yeah.
It's like a complete piece. Because it surprised me, because I thought, well, that's nice. And then it got to a certain point, and then I realized, that was an intro. This is where the song starts.
Yeah. I think that was written on the chorus, and I think one of the things they've
was it? Oh, that's a recent one.
Yeah. That's very recent. And one of the things they've encouraged us to do is almost like, if you've got a process, chuck it out the window, play with it.
Right. Yeah.
Play with it, and because I have tended to write very much first chorus, bridge, that kind of, and I've started to loosen that up a lot more now, I think, which has been a real learning. But I guess I probably, to a certain extent, like you, I mean, given the era we were brought up in, you kind of default to that.
Absolutely.
And it just, well, I mean, I love, I still love a lot of croon, the old crooners, Dean Martin, and I love all that stuff, and I've played a few Dean Martin songs in public because I still think, and it might sound a bit glib, but great songs you can reduce to one person and a guitar. Great
Absolutely.
songs.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and there's a lot of those Sinatra and Dean Martin songs you can do that with.
Well, that was one of my reasons for doing this in the first place, to be honest.
Yeah.
And because originally it started off, the first couple that I did were done as live shows.
Right.
And I went to a venue in Manchester, and I'd started off, and me and the guest would chat. I'd play a song, they'd play a couple, I'd play another one, they'd play a couple more. And then the second half, they would do a full 45-minute set. And but the whole idea was that it should be simply a voice and an instrument.
Yeah.
Because that's all, that's how how these songs are created, or that's how songs were created. And I'd agree with you about the whole sort of structure thing. I mean, I worked with a big band for years, and going back through the Great American Songbook and looking at how those songs are produced and how they're structured and everything about them, they're works of art. They really are. They're beautiful.
I mean, I always feel a bit kind of sometimes. I mean, again, because I'm a words man, I guess. When the song's got very few words and it's got loads of production, I feel cheated. I kind of want to go, no, I wanted you to tell me more.
I phrase it slightly different. It's not you've been cheated, that they're cheating. I think it's more to the point. It's not.
And also, I love to hear what people are saying.
Yeah.
So I get really annoyed when you can't hear, and people don't, it's just I mean, I get the wall of sound stuff. I completely get it. And
yeah.
But I like to hear what people have got to say. The songwriting, I did a songwriting week. My 60th birthday present to myself was to go to Nashville, and I went to Nashville. Did a songwriting week with Gretchen Peters, whose songs I love, and she really banged into me the kind of authenticity side of it. You got to kind of mean this stuff. If you're going to be a solo singer songwriter, you've got to inhabit the song. And the other thing that she really taught me, which I should have known really from my copywriting life, is the value of a great sub-editor. Someone else who because there was one song, I won't play it tonight, but there was a song I played her, and she said, she said, actually at the end of it, she said, "You've really annoyed me." And I went, "Have I?" And she said, "Yeah, because I'm going to be waking up at 2:00 in the morning with that tune in my head."
Oh, that's nice.
But then she made 5 small tweaks to it. One couple were musical and 3 were lyrical, and they just changed the song. They just brought it out of itself. Things like she said, "Look, you've used a word there which really belongs here," and then moved things around a bit. It was really interesting.
I know a few people who've been on courses with her said she's very, very good.
Yeah, she's excellent. She's a brilliant songwriter. I mean, there's someone who emotionally is absolutely in line with what she's singing about.
Yeah, must have a look deeper into what her about. I don't know much about her, to be honest.
No, she said the other lady who came along and played one day also does a lot of songwriting workshops, and I personally would advise anyone to get along when she comes to this country is Beth Nielsen Chapman.
Oh right.
Who's a brilliant teacher. Yeah, excellent.
All right.
Yeah.
Does she teach at Berkeley?
At
Berkeley.
I think she may do. She's an itinerant teacher. She's not permanent anywhere. But
because I think I've seen some stuff about some YouTube clips of her.
Yeah, she's a fascinating lady. Really talented songwriter as well.
Yeah. So what's your last song going to be about? Are you going to do the?
Yeah, I'll do that. That's the most recent one, I guess.
Streets of London Revisited. I think it's
great.
It was. I really like the idea.
I am a Londoner, as Mick will testify, and I was really. I mean, it sounds a bit. I was quite shocked, really, going back into London because I've been into London. I live in Hertfordshire now, but I've been going into London a lot for this course, and I was really quite shocked, and to be frank, a bit ashamed, really, of seeing the amount of homeless people there were in London, and I hadn't realised, and it reminded me of Streets of London. When I bought the song sheet to that, probably got it around here somewhere, in 1969, and it just struck me that we need another song like that. So it was the second week of the course. We were asked to write a song based on a political or social issue, and that's what kind of came out.
The thing
I also,
thing I did like
yeah,
about it is it didn't come over as being preachy.
yeah, I wondered about that. I
Because
wasn't too sure.
that's always been my feeling about writing
Yeah,
things that are political. I think no, that's
yeah,
it's not me. I am a political person in many ways, but on the other hand, I don't feel like it's right in my
it's a
songs.
really difficult line to tread.
Yeah,
It's
I
a really
agree.
difficult line to tread, and I won't name names, but I don't think there are some people I know who I don't think get it right.
Hmm.
Um, but divorcing yourself from that kind of preachy thing is not an easy thing to do.
No.
And I suppose Ralph McTell gave me
Hmm.
he, he was the third party. The other thing about this song is I wrote it in open G,
Right.
which is on different guitar. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm rubbish at retuning, so I just played it in open G.
Have the luxury of another guitar.
I've
Excellent.
got
Or
I think
two.
well, and the other five. But I think they're all a lot of them are tuned. I've got them tuned differently.
Hmm. Okay.
Perhaps I've grown a second skin, 'cause I've been away too long. But I'm back now in the city, and there's clearly something wrong. There are people on the pavements, there are duvets in the doors, while stacks of empty office blocks have heating underfloors. Perhaps I've grown accustomed to living in the shires, where clean and gleaming gutters are all that one desires. But I took a hike through Holborn, then a tube to Turnpike Lane, and man, I'll never look at gutters the same way again. Ralph McTell, what the hell has been your legacy? Have you seen the streets of London now? You changed some minds in '69, but that generation's gone. The city's lost its pity, and it needs another song. Hear the silent screams of those left behind by those of us who've been deaf and blind. I fear the course is set, and we're bound for hell, and London needs you back and soon. Ralph McTell. Perhaps all those COVID jabs have immunized my soul. Or did the latest lockdown see inertia take control? But my eyes have been opened, and it's with a sense of shame I find myself here today, calling out your name. Ralph McTell, what the hell has been your legacy? Have you seen the streets of London now? You changed some minds in '69, but that generation's gone. The city's lost its pity, and it needs another song. Hear the silent screams of those left behind by those of us who've been deaf and blind. I fear the course is set, and we're bound for hell, and London needs you back and soon. Ralph McTell.
Nice. Yeah. How long did it take you to come up with that? Was it a sort of spontaneous? Did you think, oh God, I don't know what I'm going to write this song about, and then suddenly go bang, and it all came out?
I literally on the tube going home from Kilburn on the night that we were given that brief, I was.
Oh, you've just locked up. You still there? Hello, hello, Hertfordshire. I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Oh yes, I can hear you now. Yes, you've come back to life.
Yeah, it went off. Yeah, it's a bit like that. Right opposite where the college is, there were some guys on the street, homeless people, and they just feed. It was in my head, so that was in my head, and social issue. What do I want to write about? And who knows? but it kind of two or three things coagulated, really. Yeah.
But by the time those things had coagulated, did the words then follow quite easily? That's my question, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this. Funny you should mention that, right? Because I was thinking that perhaps I've grown a second skin. I mean, I don't know where that came from.
I like the alliteration. I like the alliteration. Take a hike to Holborn.
Yeah, I sometimes I have to be careful because I love mucking about with words. Sometimes I say, I have to be my own sub-editor and go, that is far too contrived and stop the puns.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's interesting the sub-editing thing though, because one of the things I've mentioned to a lot of people is, or asked people a lot about, is whether they feel is there a point where a song is complete and doesn't need to be touched, or is it something that evolves as you perform it? Now, obviously, you don't perform that much, so maybe it doesn't apply. But as far as I'm concerned, a song doesn't exist until I've actually performed it.
No, I'll go along with that. Every song I've written has been performed at one time or another, and I keep a book. I've got it here. I mean, I'm quite methodical.
Yeah.
I keep a book, and I'll write when I wrote it, and I'll write when I played it as well.
Yeah. But do you find it then evolves?
It definitely, and I think I wouldn't say dramatically, but there are definite tweaks to lyrics and just syllables that hit notes, and you go, no, there's a better way of doing that.
Yeah.
Or a couple of times I've taken complete verses out because I thought, no, this is long enough now. Stop.
I quite often find I take words out.
Yeah.
Because I think, like you, I can try writing, an elegant phrase, and then think, no, I don't want it really.
One thing I do, if it's any use to anybody, and Beth Nielsen Chapman, there's a lot of things I've been listening to recently, and I've thought, oh, I do that, and she does this thing where she just mouth sounds, right, and she doesn't know. Say she's got a line, perhaps I've grown a second skin because I've been away too long, and then she go blah 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 blah, blah ong. She knows where it wants to end on, and slowly I found that happens. Your brain kind of percolates this sound, and something comes out, and you find a line.
Literally, the syllable, the sound of the syllable.
The syllable. So you just make it. It's gobbledygook. Right. It's just gobbledygook, and slowly something kind of emerges from that mist. That's happened to me too many times for it to be not a tip.
That's good. I mean, one of the things that I've mentioned is that Sammy Cahn has this thing about what he calls singability of words, which is something for me is of paramount importance, because there are some words that you just cannot sing, and there are many big hits that have the odd word snuck in that should never have been allowed out of its cage, frankly. Which we won't mention any yet, although I'm sure I have done in the past. But that's the syllable thing that sounds like a way around that.
Yeah, I've always found that you just kind of burble something, and things just slowly do emerge. But I think one of the things that this course is teaching me is to set out a kind of intention for a song before you write it. Or when you've started it, like, right, what am I actually trying to say here? So that song, I knew there's a spine to that song, if I can describe it. And the
Yeah.
spine is Ralph McTell.
Yeah.
And so I don't really deviate from that, because I hear a lot of songs and I'm going, hang on, you've given me about 5 ideas there, and I'm not sure which way you're going.
Yeah.
So I think particularly if you're a solo singer songwriter, making up your mind early what you're going to be about. And then there was something I listened to recently. I listened to a Paul Simon interview, and he said something which totally happens to me all the time. He said they asked him a very similar question to the one you've just asked about when you've written a song, and he said the ear goes to the irritant. And I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. It's
so
even a nice way of putting it.
You know when there's a word that's wrong, and then, as Gretchen Peters said when I did that course, she says that's where the work starts. Don't settle for good enough. What do you really want to say?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, then maybe the previous line needs rewriting.
I like that. The ear goes to the irritant. I like that.
I mean, that could be a line out of one of your songs.
I was going to say that it's almost.
I'm going to put that in a song, Rowland. So
why not? Go for it. Go for it. Listen, we've got a few minutes left. Do you want to sneak another song in?
Yeah, sure. If you want me to.
Yeah, why not?
Actually, even more recent than the Ralph McTell one was.
This is hot off the press, is it?
Yeah, we had to do an exercise where actually I think you'd enjoy, or anyone would enjoy this. You put your name in the middle of a blank piece of paper, and then draw some lines off it and find out who are those who are your main influences. So I write Beatles, James Taylor, Dean Martin I wrote in there. And then do another line of all the people who influenced them, do some research, and then another line. So I ended up with this big piece of paper with all these people, and I was looking at it, and I suddenly thought, the task was write a song based on that. And then I looked at it and thought, I know, there's something connects all these people. And that is that they've all at one time or another written or sung a cowboy song. So I thought, I'll invoke my inner Johnny Cash and came up with this song.
Okay.
I've set myself a quest before I'm laid to rest, 'neath the fiery sunset and the stars above. Armed with my guitar and that old aching scar, I'm heading out across the land I love. I ain't looking forward to saying my goodbyes. I got my victuals packed and my bedroll furled. Yeah, there'll be some prairie cooking, 'cause I'm going looking for the oldest cowboy in the world. My horse is shod and fed, and with every single tread, we'll mosey through Wyoming, town to town. And everywhere we go, I'll ask folks if they know where the oldest cowboy can be found. I'm expecting eyebrow-raising tales of yesteryear, where jaws have dropped and toes have curled. Yeah, there'll be some prairie cooking, 'cause I'm going looking for the oldest cowboy in the world. People keep asking me the reason why I'm heading out. Here's my reply. Can't you see with every passing season, another of these aging cowpokes will die? And the oldest of these fellas has got a lot to tell us about the history of the West when it was wild. I want to hear his story about love and loss and glory, and so should every woman, man, and child. Well, now it's time to leave. My family can't believe I'm riding out across the endless grass. I'm standing in my hall, and there's a mirror on the wall, and I just caught my reflection in the glass. Suddenly it hits me right between the eyes with the force of a rock that's just been hurled. Ah, forget that prairie cooking, 'cause I'm realized I'm looking at the oldest cowboy in the world. I forget that prairie cooking, 'cause I've just realized I'm looking at the oldest cowboy in the world.
Excellent. Love the voice. Love the voice. Brilliant. Fine effort. Well, Ed, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I've put your SoundCloud address there if people want to hear more of what you're doing. It's been an absolute pleasure. I actually learned some interesting stuff tonight. It's some of those thoughts that, but like you say, it's one of those things that somebody says, "Oh yeah, yeah," because it's things you kind of might do automatically once or twice, and then somebody says, "Well, actually, you can do that as a general rule," sort of thing. It's rather interesting. I like that.
Thank you for inviting me, Ron. It's been great.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Yeah. Absolute pleasure. And we shall speak again sometime, I hope.
Undoubtedly.
And keep doing it.
Yeah,
and,
keep warm.
And keep warm. Yes, that as well. Okay, cheers, mate. Excellent.
Thanks, Ron. See ya.
Excellent. That's, yeah. Well, that's all for this week from me. Some interesting stuff there. Well, lots of interesting stuff there, in fact. Next week, I'll be back with a gentleman called Nick Newark, who I met at a songwriting retreat some months ago. And he writes some great stuff. So, so do come and join us. Same place, same time next week, Tuesday, the whatever it is. It'll be the 20th, won't it? 20th of December, and at 8 o'clock, and we shall be here. So do come and join us. And in the meantime, look after yourselves and stay warm.